navigating the path of life. As you're navigating the path of life, are you on a large ship in rough waters? Or are you on a tugboat that's just barely getting along, just going over those short little bumps? Or did you flat fall off the boat? I feel like my life was just a tugboat. There may have been obstacles that other people would have seen as major obstacles, but I felt like I was on a tugboat. And I'll tell you, one particular thing that has helped me all my life is something that my dad told me at an early age. I was raised in West Texas town of Odessa in a lower middle income family. I had a younger brother. And I say lower middle income because my dad worked 3 jobs, and that raised us to lower middle income, and my mom worked also. But I feel like I had a pretty happy childhood. I didn't know we didn't have a lot of money and just enjoyed life. I've always been a happy child and happy adult. But one day at school, in elementary school, I went to play with my friends as usual, and at recess, and one of my friends said, "I need to talk to you. My parents said that I can't be your friend anymore." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, my parents found out that you're Spanish, and so I can't play with you anymore." And that was just a shocker to me because I didn't realize, I just thought we were all happy friends, and I felt like there was a difference, but I don't remember there being that big of a difference. So like normal families, I went home that day, and my parents said, "How did school go today?" And I said, "Well, let me tell you what happened." And so my dad said, "Now, Sondra, you're no different than anyone else. We are different, but that you're not any less than anyone else. And I want you to think about this throughout your life, what I'm about to tell you. I want this to really resonate with you." And he said, "Her dad puts his pants on just like I do." And I thought, well, that's right. I didn't think about that. We aren't different. And so that was a real equalizer in my life. Any situation that I was ever in and I felt inferior in any way, or with gender as a female or as a minority, it was a super equalizer for me. I could just sit and think, no, I'm ready for this. There's an equal playing field. I can do this. So that resonated with me, and race or gender's never been an issue to me at all. Now, I'm married to my high school sweetheart. This year we'll be married for 35 years. And we both, thank goodness, share a love for reading and motivational speakers. So throughout our lives, we have listened to Tony Robbins. I'm sure several of you have. And way back when, we had a cassette program called Personal Power. And with Personal Power, Tony Robbins will encourage you to look at your goals for life. And he also had success conditioning. And so we were wanting to be successful. We decided that we would look at this program and do exactly what he said. And one of the particular things that we would do is we would look at our goals and say, okay, what's our 1-month goal, our 6-month goal, our 1-year goal, and our 5-year goal? And 2 of the particular goals that we had was to own our own business, and another one was that we would be financially successful enough to share with others. Toby and I have a servant heart and want to serve people, and when we didn't have the money, we served with our time and talent, but eventually we wanted to serve with our treasure also. So we continued that goal searching and did that once a month. We would drive or just spend some time at home and just look at those goals. Prior to getting married, we both worked in the oil field. And if you know anything about West Texas and Odessa, you know that the oil field is up and down, has bust or boom. And at the time that we were getting married, there was a bust that was coming on. And Toby worked for his family. And lo and behold, a week before we get married, he gets laid off. And I remember him going to his father and saying, "Dad, why are you laying me off? Why me?" And he said, "My brother works here too. What about him?" And his dad said, "No, you and Sondra are young. You'll be able to land on your feet. Your brother has a wife and 2 young children. You guys will be fine." And another lesson that he taught us was, and Toby, as an owner, I have other families that I'm having to really impact their lives in a negative way. So how can I do that without impacting my own family? And so that was a real lesson for us later on in life. So anyway, we go on our honeymoon, jobless, and plan while we're on our honeymoon and decide, okay, when we get back, we're going to find a job. We came back, both found a job right away, and his dad was right, we landed on our feet. So we continued with each of those goals, learning about each one of those, and then one day we were driving, and typically Toby loved to drive everywhere, and so I would have everything ready, all these books at my feet, and we would look over each of our goals. So one day I said, okay, so what are we going to do, ticking off the goals, and when it came to owning our own business, he said, well, I've been thinking about something, so what do you think about this? He said, I want to buy my family's business. And I said, you're kidding me. I always thought that we would start with something small, like a little mom and pop shop or a franchise. I didn't think that we'd buy your family's business of about 6 or 7 branches in other cities. Let's start slow. And he said, no. His dad at the time had cancer, and another lesson that we learned at that time also was, we could have, when we both got laid off, and especially Toby, we could have become estranged from the family or really gotten mad and become victims, but we decided to keep those close family ties and just move on from there, not be victims. And because of that, his dad had eventually asked him to come back to work for Odessa Pumps. And at that time, when his dad had cancer, he asked Toby to be the president of the company. And so at that time, he had been the president for a while, and he said, I want to buy this business. And they may not let us. There were 3 families involved, his family and another local family, and then another family that had worked within the business. And he said, the only way that'll happen is if 100% of the shareholders agree to do that. And I said, okay. And so being people of faith, we prayed about it and said, if it's meant to be, it will happen. And he went out to meet with each one of the shareholders and came back and said, Sondra, we have 100% agreement in all the shareholders. They want to sell. So for about 5 minutes, I was really excited. And then I thought about, oh my goodness, we've got a lot of debt that we're going to have to pay. So anyway, a lot, being raised with no money and then all of a sudden owning a business and having the pressures from that business, I was very, very afraid. But we put the right team together. We went and found people within the company that were the right team members and like-minded and wanted to have the best. Our dream was to have the best service company in the industry. And so we put the team together, went out and found other people in the industry that were willing to come on our team and just hit the ground running. And one thing that we had asked the shareholders was, can we pay you back in 10 years? Because we really don't have a lot of money and most of it's going to be borrowed. And if you would please allow us to pay you back in 10 years. And they said, sure. So everything was just unfolding the way we wanted it to. Well, fast forward 5 years, and we had made enough money with our team to pay them back in half the time. It had been such a successful company. And with that, we started in a bust. It was not a time of flourishing. We put our team together, and that's one thing that we always did is when there was a slump in the economy, that's when we worked on getting ready for the next rise. But anyway, that worked. In 5 years, we were able to pay them back. Because we felt so blessed by our team and we're happy with the team we had together, we decided that we would let our team members invest in our business. And the managers then invested in the business, and then it was amazing what was happening in the company. It just kept growing and growing, and by the time we ended up selling the business later, we had grown into 15 different communities. But as things were rocking along and life was good, we decided to go on a trip to Costa Rica. And I love fishing. So, of course, the first thing I'll plan is we're going to go deep sea fishing. Well, that day, I know it was a God thing because that day I didn't go fishing. And there were several people on the boat. Our youngest son, Reese, was on it also, and his college roommate and 2 other families. And I get a call about halfway, about the time they were supposed to get home. And our friend says, Sondra, there's been a terrible accident. And I said, what's wrong? And they said, well, Toby was thrown off the boat and got caught in the motor, and you need to meet us at the marina. So I just, adrenaline set in, and I took off for the marina. And when I got there, I didn't know what had happened. When they said he was cut by the motor, he'd fallen into the motor, I didn't know if he was amputated or what had happened. I didn't know how my world was going to change. So I get there, and once I made sure that all his limbs were intact, then I noticed all the bandages, and I asked what had happened. And what had happened was these sailfish they caught 2 sailfish at once. And often, if you've ever gone deep-sea fishing, the captain will try to help you by backing down the boat. Well, when he was backing down the boat, water was coming in, and our youngest son started noticing and came out for the commotion, but he said he saw that water coming in and thought something bad is about to happen. So he started scooting back, and Toby was there 1 minute, and then he was gone. So everyone goes to the back of the boat, Toby being my husband, goes to the back of the boat, and they don't see him. They see his cap, and no one can find him. So everyone's in a panic, and they wait for a while, and they saw some blood and thought he's not going to come back. So our youngest son starts running around the boat in a panic, and he said, I just started running and running and running around, and he went to the front of the boat where no one was looking, and Toby said he remembers his legs were cut, the length of his legs, just filleted basically, and then he had deep cuts in his hip, and he couldn't use his legs. And when he hit the motor, he said he remembers hitting it and pushing away, and he's a really strong person and a strong swimmer, so he swam under the boat and went to the front. And so no one was looking there, though. That was the bad thing, is that he didn't stay where he had fallen. But our son, he said he remembers trying to hold himself up, and the waves would go up, and he wouldn't see the boat, and then it would come down. But at one time when it came down and he was about to give up, our youngest son saw him. And he said that was the best thing that he could ever say, because by then he was praying was, Lord, please don't let me die in front of my son. So he, just through all of that, it was just a miracle that he saw him. And so by then they brought the boat over, and Toby remembered later what happened with all that was that he kept thinking, why isn't anyone jumping in to get me? Because they were saying, swim over here, swim over here. And when he got in the boat, he realized that there was blood all around him, and you're in the middle of the ocean. There were sharks out there. So they finally bring him in. One of the deckhands jumps into the water, brings him in, and they brought him in. And long story short, he spends 4 hours in surgery in Costa Rica. And that was really difficult for me because I worked in a hospital for 15 years, so I know how hard it can be with people taking care of you, and I don't know in a foreign country what it's going to be like. But the doctor eventually talked me into taking care of Toby, and I let him, and he said he has to be taken care of. You've got to let me take care of him. So he's fine today. Thank goodness. He's basically 100% cured from all his injuries. But I tell you that long story to let you know that what community means to us. That night when he had surgery, after his surgery, we had calls from our community and texts from our community that we didn't know half the people. And we weren't that well known. It's just that word spread, and the power of a community that you put around you, us and our company and the place where we had lived, grown up, and our kids had grown up, and we'd gone to church, was overwhelming. I can't even tell you what it felt like that night. And we've always felt a sense of giving back with that. So in 2015, when we sold our company, it was very important to us to give back to the community. And that's why, as some of you that live in this community have heard, that we finally realized our dream. We have enough money to give back to what's been given to us. We want to bless others as we've been blessed. And so right now we're in the middle of an opportunity to revitalize our downtown here in Odessa. We're working on that with the city. And it's we never even dreamed of doing that, and we're so excited to be in the middle of that. But my story today, I tell you that whether you are in a tugboat or whether you're in a ship or wherever you are, rough seas, calm seas, stay steady and strong and be secure and don't fall off that boat. Thank you.